Hi Dave.
Hey Eric.
Welcome to the Ubuntu podcast.
It's on, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Hi, I'm Eric. Dev and I founded Ubuntu.
Ubuntu is based, its root is in Rwanda, where we conceived of the idea and where we discussed the gaps that African education has and how we could fill those. So it was a long time ago, Eric, 5 years ago.
Oof, yes.
Lake Kivu, edge of Lake Kivu, when we came up with the idea of Ubuntu. We didn't come up with a name initially, but the name seemed to fit eventually. But it was very much at that time about, there were problems that both of us could see, and we could see that there were ways to solve those problems.
Yes. Ubuntu is a disruptor in the African education landscape.
So ultimately, Ubuntu is in the business of improving education in Africa. Am I smiley enough? Is this okay? Yeah?
Ubuntu exists to provide a platform and to provide a way for African education systems to develop a global voice that comes from within.
So Ubuntu has three main branches. We have Usawa, we have Boxed, and the Ubuntu Hub.
Ubuntu is made by educators for educators.
Ubuntu is a community. It's an African philosophy, but it's a community-mind African philosophy. It means, in a nutshell, I am because you are, and we are together. More powerful than or able to achieve greater things than if we were just individuals.
Personally, I realised it was a problem that I was educated on the African continent and yet knew nothing about the surrounding areas that I grew up in.
Where actually the whole contextualized kind of curriculum plays a big part in within African education.
Learning about the river, the Rhine, when you could be learning about the Zambezi, it didn't make sense. I remember clearly between you and me that we felt there was the kind of a neo-colonial approach to education in Africa. That's actually what's standing in the way of proper development.
I mean, mainly coming from like the technology perspective, there was a huge divide and a huge gap in how actually students and teachers access information.
Schools, the other thing that we talked about was schools were isolated. Schools can't grow in isolation. Schools need to communicate and collaborate with each other to become good. If you run a school or own a school or lead a school, you cannot expect that school to grow on its own because it doesn't, you need outside influence.
That's where it goes back to how do we contribute where teachers and students can have access to quality education, homegrown within Africa, where we don't have, because even when I was growing up, I had this perception, yes, to have a better education, you have to travel abroad.
Yeah. And for schools to develop and for education to develop, it needs to be progressive, it needs to be forward thinking, and it needs to keep moving forward all the time. And that just wasn't happening. That was our sense.
We're an edtech company. Education is key, and using technology to reimagine education.
I just remember having quite a clear vision in my head about what African education could look like, what it really could be if we harnessed what was available on the continent to develop what was on the continent.
Man, you were well prepared.
Marriage counselling.